Okay, quick video today because I just wanted to talk about this mistake that I see a lot of people making when they're building their personal brands, which is they try to reinvent the wheel too much because they think that by making their personal brand complex, that makes them unique because they don't understand what uniqueness means. So let me try to unpack this and give you another perspective when you're trying to build a personal brand or you're trying to build your own brand or business, right? So when you're trying to make something unique, what most people do is that they try to make it complex. They add stuff on top of one another. So you might try to add a lot of colors to your brand, or you might try to add a lot of loaded words. So words that have a lot of meaning to your brand, and you pick a lot of words, right? They don't follow the pick a niche advice, then try to become the niche, but they make it too complex. And when we're thinking about making a decision or trying to understand something, you don't want to be spending too much energy. Your brain spends energy to think, wow. And when you're making decisions, your brain spends energy to make these decisions. So if your brain has to sort through too many decisions, it gets harder and harder to understand it, right? That's one of the principles of cognitive overload, which I talked in one of my latest newsletters. And it basically goes that your mind has certain processing capabilities. So when there's too much information that it exceeds how much you can process at a certain moment all at once, then you have this state of cognitive overload and you start to forget things and you start to, you know, slow down your thinking because your brain cannot hold all the information that you're spitting at someone. So when you're trying to add too many words, too many associations, too many brand colors, too many fonts, too many whatever you're trying to build, and you're just stacking things one over the other, you're just making it complex. You're not making it unique. But if you think of the best cases of branding in history, you see that they have one thing in common, which is simplicity. And they have monopolized a simple feeling. So let me unpack this. Why do people want to go to the United States so much? Right? If you think about it, why do people want to move to the States? What they say they want when they're going to the States. So they want freedom, right? They want to start a company. They want a better shot at building their dream life. Why? Because the United States position itself as the land of the brave and the free, right? The red, white, and blue. You know this. If you want to start a company, you go to Silicon Valley, where things actually happen, where innovation happens, right? So the United States is a perfect example of branding simplicity. It branded freedom. The United States has a monopoly on freedom, and they branded freedom so other people that value freedom can't help of another, better place to be than the United States. That's great branding. Another example, Apple. Apple has branded simplicity and innovation, right? Which are not synonym. But when you look at Apple, you think of simplicity and innovation because innovation can look very complex, as I said. There are a lot of great geniuses that we just don't know about them because they didn't have the skills to communicate their ideas in their simplest form, right? But Steve Jobs, which you're seeing him right here, and that's not a coincidence, and I'll get into that. He learned to communicate things in their most compelling way. There's a phrase in the book, Insanely Simple, which is find the most compelling thing and communicate it in the most compelling way. Great read. Really recommend the book, by the way. And there's a reason for that. Innovation, simplicity, think different, going against the status quo. These are all aspirational values from Apple. And me, as a person, I buy from Apple because I identify with those values. So if you look at my personal brand, I am also trying to transmit those values. I value simplicity. You know, I started on minimalism years ago. So it's not a coincidence that I'm filming this in my iPhone and I'm recording this through my MacBook. If you look at my coffee mug or whatever, it is black and silver. And if you look at my iPhone, it is black and has some silver parts in it. The MacBook, same thing. My desk, same thing. My mouse, same thing. AirPods, everything. All of the things that I have surrounding me, because one, I identify with that because it's a universal feeling. And two, I want you to identify with that when you're watching one of my videos, right? So me having this book right here, it's not a coincidence. I want to be associated with the feeling of innovation and simplicity because they are values that I'm trying to transmit with my brand. These are not things that happen, randomly. They're constructed, but they're constructed by subtracting and not by adding. And that's the most important thing. If you want to build a personal brand that is recognizable, that people can understand and digest, you have to make it simple for them. You have to make it obvious for them so it can become undeniable. And it's my responsibility to unpack this in simple forms. So that might be a symbol, that might be, the fewest words possible. And that's the work of a brand strategist or even the creator when they're trying to figure out what they want to say with their brand. So yeah, I just wanted to share this because complexity doesn't help anyone. It just makes things, more difficult to digest. And there's a lot of noise out there in the internet, and you don't want your brand to be forgotten. So if you want your brand to be remembered or unignorable or undeniable, you really have to go out of your way to simplify things, to find the simplest form that communicates your idea in the most compelling way. Again, remember this phrase, if you leave with anything from this video, is find the most compelling thing and communicate it in the most compelling way. So yeah, these are my 2 cents for today.